On January 30th, there was a super important vote that you probably didn't hear about.
It is no secret.
And it was a vote sponsored, of course, by Bernie Sanders.
We've got all of the power
To take $75 billion that is going to ICE right now.
That is, in fact, funding a domestic army.
And put it to healthcare.
Our healthcare system basically collapsing despite the huge amount of money we spend on it.
It lost, but it lost by a narrow margin. The final vote was 49-51. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and every single Democrat, including John Fetterman,
the favorite Democratic senator of Donald Trump,
supported the Sanders vote to basically take the money that last year Republicans took out of healthcare and put into Steve Miller's dragnet to move that money back.
That's $75 billion from the so-called big, beautiful bill that went to ICE. And I would direct that money to go to protect the millions of people who that bill threw off of Medicaid.
And it's an important vote, one, because it says that we're very close to achieving at least a Senate majority of people who say we should have the health care rather than the dragnet.
People are looking at what's happening in Minneapolis and elsewhere and saying, you know what, that is not what this country is supposed to be.
But also because going forward, we're going to have people like John Husted.
John Husted was appointed U.S. Senator by Governor Mike DeWine after J.D. Vance became President Trump's VP. Today, the 58-year-old Husted, joined by his wife Tina, filed the necessary paperwork to run in next year's Ohio Senate race that will likely pit him against Democrat Sherrod Brown,
who voted for the dragnet rather than for health care for their constituents.
She can be heard pleading to agents and screaming to those watching that she is an American citizen.
It will be, I think, an important political message as we get closer to November's election.
Take a listen.
That Republicans literally chose to fund the dragnet instead of health care.
Going into region after region, terrorizing the occupants of those communities.
And I raise that because it also gets us to a place where I think we need to be about what Trump has done in the last year.
Jonathan Friedland has covered the United States for over 30 years for the British newspaper The Guardian.
Which is to talk about the shift that he has done, the things he has taken away.
The way to understand Donald Trump's first year of his second presidency is about grabbing power and removing any restraints on his power.
To give us basically authoritarianism.
That's the game he's playing. And I think ICE is part of that.
Already his authoritarianism is not popular.
DHS, Kristi Noem, have been a political disaster because just take a look here.
Already taking away health care, not popular.
How do Americans rate the president right now on the issue of health care?
Just flat out awful. In fact, it's the worst of his major issues.
But when we tie those things together, as Bernie Sanders did,
instead of funding a domestic army which breaks the Constitution every day, we should be putting that money to help the people of our country get the health care that they need.
I think you get a much stronger message of what we lose when we give in to Stephen Miller.
This is the United States of America, and all that bullshit is done. It's over.
The most stunning example of that is with VA care, right?
It's just truly devastating.
Trump cut some VA positions.
A former VA psychometrist who spoke with me last year and wishes to remain anonymous told me at the time more than 40 Cleveland VA employees had been terminated.
But they're not filling existing positions.
It is baffling.
The Veterans Administration is short on things like psychologists, nurses, what have you.
While the VA claims these are unneeded openings left from the pandemic, its own Inspector General reported last August that 94% of VA facilities reported severe staffing shortages for medical officer occupations, and 79% of facilities reported severe shortages.
And where did that money go?
This is a all-of-government unlimited support operation. ATF, DEA, FBI, ICE, Department of War, every resource we have. And they're not going to be sitting behind a desk at a keyboard. We are sending in real cops with guns.
That money went to pay for goons
There's still, 2,000-ish that are in the Twin Cities? That's still greater than the law enforcement in the Twin Cities metro area at large.
To invade Minnesota.
Have you apologized? Did you plan to apologize to the family of Alex Pretti?
To shoot a VA nurse dead. To shoot Alex Pretti dead.
For what? For, labeling him an assassin with ill intent.
Well, again, I just described to you what I said about Alex Pretti, which is that he's a guy who showed up with ill intent to an ICE protest.
So Donald Trump, Stephen Miller are taking away care that veterans have earned by serving.
The number of unfilled positions grew by 50% in just 1 year.
And using that money instead to literally go shoot a VA ICU nurse dead.
We all know what actually happened. The gun that Pretti was carrying legally, which he never held nor brandished, was removed from Pretti before he was shot, while lying prone on the ground on all fours with a gun just a few inches from his body.
To shoot a Christian mother, blonde, white Christian mother dead.
We all saw the video of Renee Good getting shot, multiple videos, in fact, from multiple angles.
That's a trade-off.
For what?
Another one is the USAID.
83% of USAID programs have been terminated. That causing a $60 billion funding gap, a gap, of course, that's been, impossible to fill.
There have been a bunch of reports about how many people Marco Rubio, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, Donald Trump, killed by cutting all of the USAID funding.
This is a story of an American-made crisis, not a war, not a natural disaster, but decisions made in Washington, D.C. that allowed people to die of preventable diseases and starvation.
Been two that have come out in just the last week.
The effect of humanitarian aid being withdrawn will be catastrophic.
One is a Lancet report that said, here's what aid did from 2001 to 2021.
Researchers found that during the first 2 decades of the 2000s, ODA prevented deaths from HIV/AIDS by 70% and reduced by more than half deaths from malaria and malnutrition.
Here's how many lives were saved by this aid.
The authors forecast that if the trend continues by 2030, that 22.6 million people could die from preventable causes across dozens of low and middle income countries, including 5.4 million children under the age of 5.
There's also a Refugee International report which shows the aid that the United States withdrew basically created a bunch of people who desperately need foreign aid and will no longer get it.
The agency's effective shutdown meant the cancellation of thousands of health grants, which researchers at Boston University estimate in just 6 months led to the preventable deaths of 600,000 people, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa.
So we know that Marco Rubio, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, were responsible for all of these deaths. We continue to get those numbers.
One of the things we learned is that people who died from cholera were only counted if they died in a health clinic. So the numbers are just a dramatic undercount.
What is Donald Trump giving American taxpayers in exchange for that?
For what?
Well, we just learned this week that
Sarah Rogers is the Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy at the State Department.
But what she actually is a right-wing activist.
This has become a very important undersecretariat with the rise of the internet, and then during the Biden administration, especially these mushrooming concerns about so-called disinformation.
She's an attorney who has gotten some precedents on First Amendment cases.
America has taken a much stronger approach on free speech than even most of the West.
She's a right-wing activist.
One of our jurisprudential principles under the American First Amendment is if you're going to enact any regulation that comes close to touching speech, it needs to be very clear what you are prohibiting, because you have this chilling effect concept.
She has jumped onto efforts, Elon Musk has been central to them, to claim that unless you are willing to platform Nazis, you don't support free speech.
We have a lot of Europeans in the audience today, and I hope none of them will find it contentious if I suggest that in Europe there is more of a focus on technocratic regulation as an arbiter of what's acceptable than there might be in America.
And she has just gotten done with a tour of Europe, scolding Europeans.
We have this tradition that really emphasizes like rugged individualism and individual conscience.
This is in the period when TikTok has started to censor.
Multiple Emmy Award-winning Minnesota journalist Georgia Fort joins us live now.
Donald Trump is cutting off journalists.
There's been a strategic attack on the free press for quite some time, but recently it is intensifying.
The entire Defense Department has cut out real journalists.
Kimmel being pulled off air.
Trump is trying to shut down media organizations that aren't nice to him.
The segment on 60 Minutes not running when it was supposed to, and probably only running because of the outcry from the public.
He sues them at every corner.
I would say that the arrest of myself and Don Lemon is a new level.
He's raiding journalists.
To threaten taking someone's freedom away for them simply doing their job, to try and criminalize journalism.
Sarah's running around Europe scolding Europeans about what she claims is their refusal to support free speech.
That's how it becomes illegal to make jokes around the water cooler, for example.
Part of this, by the way, this is all an Elon Musk, richest man in the world, project to, of course, to platform Nazis.
He's decided to take his political project global, backing far-right parties in many other countries and using his massive platform to attack anyone who doesn't share his views.
To use his machine for fascism to foster political violence in the UK and Ireland.
Musk has regularly attacked UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, saying that Starmer was complicit in the rape of Britain and calling for him to face criminal charges, while calling another Labour minister a rape genocide apologist.
To support Nazi parties, far-right fascist parties, UK and Germany.
Musk publicly endorsed the German Alternative for Deutschland, or AfD, a far-right political party with deep ties to the neo-Nazi movement.
But the other thing the Financial Times just reported this week is she's got a slush fund.
Public diplomacy is different. Public diplomacy addresses the relationship between the American government and foreign publics.
So we are literally, Donald Trump literally, Elon Musk, richest man in the world, literally took money away from starving children in Africa.
People inside of Kakuma, which is supposed to be one of the more stable and reliable refugee camps in Africa, they were leaving to flee back to the places where they had left for violence.
They told us they'd rather die from violence than hunger.
We were on the verge of curing AIDS in Africa.
The UN has warned that failure to restore prevention endeavors could result in an additional 3.3 million new HIV infections between 2025 and 2030.
Took money away from feeding people in Sudan and instead gave the money to Sarah to spend on Nigel Farage.
The far right has now captured the state and is planning to use it to overthrow our state. This is not exaggeration.
Let me repeat that.
This is about the US government actively funding the spread of far-right ideology, and it is going to impact the UK.
You're taking money away from starving children.
28 of Nigel Farage's former schoolmates and teachers have said that they witnessed racist or anti-Semitic behaviour by Nigel Farage during the 1970s and 1980s.
And giving it to Nigel Farage.
The stated purpose is to promote US policy positions and to challenge so-called threats to free speech. But again, I stress, free in this context means freedom for the rich and not for anyone else.
And then finally, there's another one. And again, this is Bernie Sanders. He's really good at this.
Their game plan is not complicated.
Big surprise.
Demagogues have used it throughout history.
He has been tracking what RFK Jr. has been doing at NIH.
What steps are you taking to make sure that our nation's health policy is guided by scientists and not conspiracy theorists?
Well, Senator,
Please talk into the mic a little bit closer.
Obviously, one of the things RFK Jr. has been doing is hiring all these fucking cranks who are dismantling the vaccine system in the United States. And that money is going to basically disinformation.
Do vaccines cause autism? Tell that to the American people. Yes? No?
I do not believe that the measles vaccine causes autism.
No, I didn't ask measles. Do vaccines cause autism?
I have not seen a study that suggests any single vaccine causes autism.
Okay.
He came out with a report again this week that talked about the grants that have been shut down in the last year by Donald Trump. So, for example, 116 cancer research grants have either been terminated, 98, or frozen, 18. Total funding of $273 million. He went through in that report Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, altogether 320 grants trying to find a cure for cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and heart disease have been cut to the tune of $561 million. And instead, we're funding measles.
That they have confirmed 2 measles cases at the Dilley Detention Center in Texas. This is where Liam Ramos, 5 years old, was held.
Instead, we've got a measles breakout in one of the concentration camps to store children in Texas.
To sort of take a step back, a lot of people might not realize that there are hundreds of children that are held at the Dilley Detention Center.
This is where I think we have a real opportunity, I think, going forward to explain these trade-offs, to go to Tom Emmer,
Congressman Majority House Whip,
and say, Tom Emmer,
is it only Friday?
You insist that these thugs must have masks, must be allowed to wear masks.
Why wouldn't you want to get a judicial warrant?
But you're also insisting that it is okay to take funds away from caring for veterans to use it to pay thugs to invade your state and shoot Minnesotans dead.
They're just trying to muddle the situation.
We need to talk about these trade-offs. We need to talk about how the richest man in the world and his installed puppet and people like Sarah,
longtime listener, first-time guest,
are using money that brought real value to do really heinous things to spread their authoritarianism, not just in the United States, but around the world.
For what?
Produced by LOL GOP Studios. Find out more at patreon.com/LOL GOP Studios.